Good evening and welcome. This is a meeting of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Halton District School Board for Tuesday, June the 7th, 2022, our final meeting of this school year. Given the need to practice social distancing due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're holding this meeting remotely through a video conference. The meeting is being recorded. In accordance with Ontario Regulation 463-97 and the guidelines effective February the 1st, 2021, any meeting of the Board of Trustees and/or committee meetings which are open to the public must be live streamed and be able to take questions from the public. The purpose is to foster two-way participation during these meetings. To comply with this, CEEC will be using a Google form, which is attached to each agenda distributed in advance of the meetings and posted on the HDSB CEEC website page. Questions posed during live stream meetings of CEEC may be answered during that meeting, particularly those that relate to agenda items, or at the following meeting at the discretion of the chair. For efficiency, multiple questions received that are similar in nature may be grouped together at the discretion of the chair and/or vice chair. Questions will not be attributed. Notation will be made that multiple people ask the same question. Any questions that contain language that is hateful or discriminatory will not be considered. So first of all, we'll do a roll call to record who's in attendance, and if you could please answer yes or present.
I'm going to start with the trustees. Heather.
Good evening from North Halton.
Margot.
Good evening from South Halton, and we're going against your yes or present.
Yes, it's okay. Flexibility is key.
Okay, then I'm going to ABC. Yellen.
Present, I'm going to follow the rules.
Is Jen here?
No.
Autism Ontario, I'm looking for Lisa. Lisa Cameron.
Lisa, I can see her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then Candace isn't here, so I'm going to Easter Seals. Is Sarah is Melissa here?
No, I haven't seen her.
Okay. Moving on to Halton Down syndrome. Is Rebecca here?
Present.
Is Sophia here?
Not seen her, no.
Okay. Learning disabilities. Alison, our chair.
I'm here.
No, present.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Present. Present.
Diane.
Present.
And moving on to the to voice. Aaron.
No, I don't see him.
And is Kathy's center regrets.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to members at large. James.
Here.
Diane.
Present.
Lou, present. From the board liaison, Colette. And
Good evening.
good evening, Sean.
Good evening.
And anyone else from the board?
We have Marta and Kevin assisting.
And Kevin, okay.
Okay, great. Thank
Over
you.
to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. So first of all, we'll begin by honouring the land and taking a moment to reflect on where we are seated today and the history that comes with that. So Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Atawonderan, the Haudenosaunee and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honour and respect the four directions, land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. So the first step for this meeting is to approve our agenda for tonight. Are there any modification or amendments that need to be made? If you could indicate in the chat box or raise your hand. Is that a hand? Okay, Margot.
Yeah, so I'm just checking. So we got the vote on the spec ed plan as 2.1, which there is 10 minutes designated for. However, we have a minority report associated with that. So I'm just wondering if 10 minutes will be enough time.
Okay, and that may well not, in which case, obviously, we will continue that discussion until we've finalized that and taken the vote. So yes, I am aware, and there is space on the agenda for the minority report. Okay. So with that flexibility, would anybody like to move the agenda as it is right now? Okay, Margot. And second it, Yarlene. Okay. Does anybody want to abstain or vote against the agenda as we have it tonight? Okay, not seeing any objections raised. The agenda is passed unanimously. So everybody has had a chance to review the May 3rd meeting minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? If you could bring those to our attention. Okay, none being seen. Would somebody like to propose the motion to pass the minutes? Heather, thank you. And somebody to second?
I can second that.
Okay, Diane Miller, great. So does anybody want to object or abstain from passing the meeting minutes from the last meeting? Okay, not seeing any. The meeting minutes are passed unanimously. Okay, so now we're going to begin on our action items. And as mentioned, the first element that's up is a vote on whether SEAC supports the special education plan that's previously been presented to the committee. But before we move to a vote, I'd like to ask if there are any members or associations that have concerns that they would like to raise before we go to a vote. If you could make yourselves known. Yarlene?
Yes, ABC and has two major concerns. So we will not support the special education plan this year again. And so we're filing a minority report. So I wish to present to the committee tonight. And so either before discussion or after discussion, and however you want to proceed, and just let me know.
I think it would be good to have your minority report before the committee votes. So we're open to hearing that now, if you're okay, Yarlene.
Yeah, certainly. So first of all, and before I present the minority report, I wanted to first, as ABC representative, and so this is actually my full year sitting on the committee, and so I want to say that I have learned a lot tremendously. That learning that being here with everybody and learning about the services and the great work that the board and provide and for our students, and also the dedicated teachers and staff and trustees that who are here willing to listen and also learn. So it's a great experience in the last year. So but as an association, and we're representing and the children that who are gifted, and also from the community. And so After the Special Education Plan 2022-2023 was presented to the SEAC committee, and ABC Halton did send this plan to the committee and request and feedback from the committee, from the community. But we as an association that we feel that there are major issues hasn't been resolved, and so we want to bring forward into the committee and for consideration, and also perhaps that be considered by the trustees and to the board. So here I'm going to present the minority report from the ABC. After careful review of the proposed Special Education Plan 2022-2023 that was shared with the SEAC members, ABC Halton consulted with parents of gifted children and other community members to see how the Special Education Plan 2022-2023 supports the needs of gifted children in schools across the board. Regrettably, ABC Halton will vote not to support the HDSB's Special Education Plan 2022-2023 and file a minority report with two main issues identified. Issue number one, declining early identification and placement of primary gifted children in self-contained classroom. In the past 2 years, there are increasing numbers of parents seeking help through ABC Halton to address the issues that they or their children faced in the gifted identification process, staff qualification and training for working with gifted students in schools. The board's report currently shows 1,147 students identified as gifted, but does not show any further breakdowns to demonstrate how many are actually entering primary grade through the problem-solving pathways process, and how many are identified through the grade 4 identification process. The number is misleading and lacks transparency, especially in understanding the issues faced by the primary gifted students and families. As mentioned in the previous minority report ABC submitted to the board, there were 158 primary age children identified gifted in 2018-2019, while only one student was identified in 2019-2020. Although we know that the previous process was not without a few challenges, with this stark contrast of the number of identified primary gifted students, the question we ask is how many gifted students have fallen through the cracks because the system isn't set up to support them properly. We believe that the elimination of the identification process of primary gifted students at HDSB has directly contributed to these issues we've seen in the last 2 years. For families who have children and who are not yet identified as gifted, replacing the primary gifted identification process with problem-solving pathways have created more barriers for parents who need to navigate a complex school system to find appropriate support and services for their children, whose needs cannot be supported in a regular classroom. Since there are no data from the board on how many children in the primary grade are identified gifted through private testing or through the board's psychoeducational assessment services, this may further widen the gap of social and economical inequality among different groups of students and their families. Many children and families struggle privately because without proper identification, the educational support and services is limited to them at HDSB. Due to the lack of transparency and data on how the problem-solving pathways support gifted children, especially those in the primary grade, ABC proposed that the board collects the data to evaluate the efficacy of problem-solving pathway in support of gifted identification and service planning, including the self-contained classes for primary gifted students. Issues identified through the data and the evaluation process will help facilitate for future discussions and decisions to plan and implement better services and support for gifted children within the HDSB. Over the last 2 years, the consequences of the board decision to eliminate the primary gifted identification process also have had devastating effect on the current students in the primary gifted self-contained classes, as the decline of number of identified primary gifted students across the board. Students who are in primary gifted self-contained classes are being bused out to schools that are not in their geographic school zones, or being put into multi-grade classes that don't properly support their educational and social needs. In 2021-2022 school year, the current primary gifted self-contained class in Milton has 9 students ranged from grade 2 to 4 in one class, with no grade 1 enrollment in a program. Due to the increasing low enrollment in primary self-contained classes, with very little students entering this program over the last few years, there continues to be concern in our community that these classes will be eliminated within the Milton-Halton Hill boundaries or merged further into other programs within the board, even further away from the students' geographical areas. The lack of enrollment in the self-contained primary classes are a direct result of extremely low identification of gifted children in primary grades since 2019. ABC believes that the problem-solving pathway did not support the primary students and families to get identified in order to access the support and services needed. Without a proper identification process and a long-term plan to support gifted students in all grades, the services and support currently offered by the board, especially for those in the primary grades, will not be sustainable. Therefore, ABC proposed that the board take steps to evaluate the current identification process, including the problem-solving pathways, and to create both short-term and long-term plans to support current and future gifted students in the primary grade. Issue number 2, communication with parents regarding the gifted placement options. This issue was identified and brought to the board attention in the minority report last year. ABC continues to receive parents' questions and concerns around the process, resources, and support for identified learners, either through private or school-funded testing. Feedback from our parent community is that this process continues to be inconsistent among HDSB schools, causing confusion on what support is available for these students, including self-contained classroom options. This causes parents to reach out to us and other parents within our community to understand other parents' experience to help guide their decisions. Furthermore, students who have other exceptionalities that have also been identified are lacking additional resources within gifted self-contained classes. They are being told these resources do not exist within this type of program, cause parents to choose between which exceptionality they support versus the whole child's needs. This year, the board has consulted with ABC and made changes to the language used in the problem-solving pathway to bring clarity to the information for parents. However, we do feel that since this pathway process generally does not support the needs of identification for most gifted learners, the clarity in communication can only help with children who are identified through this problem-solving pathway process, which, as stated above, is extremely low. ABC has been informed that the board is working on a video for parents, guardians of students who meet the gifted criteria on their options for placement. The video will assist with consistency of messaging on the options for parents and allow parents to make an informed decision for placement. ABC welcomes the introduction of this tactic and appreciate the opportunity to continue working collaboratively with the board to support the gifted student and family. We look forward to seeing this video as the first step to build consistent support and communication to parents, helping to make this process clear and more consistent for parents who want to make the best decision for their children's learning path. Furthermore, ABC would like to see how other tools like training, educational resources can be developed and incorporated into executing a streamlined, consistent service delivery and understanding of options for parents. ABC Halton hopes that the board will take further steps to address them and provide appropriate services and support needed for the gifted children and families in the Halton regions. So that is the minority report and from the ABC Halton. So I welcome any comments, questions, or suggestions regarding this minority report. Thank you.
Yes, are there any questions right now? Margot?
Thank you. Yaleen, thank you so much for, I'm sure, all the work that went into producing this report. My first question, I think actually is probably for Colette and Sean. So my question is surrounding the idea about the identification and placement concern that ABC has. Now, I know in our statement of beliefs, our fourth bullet is inclusion of students in their regular classroom and neighborhood school environment to the greatest extent possible is most desirable when it is in the best interest of the child and in accordance with the parent wishes. So what my question is what types of resources and supports are in place to ensure students, regardless of identification, are able to successfully stay in those mainstream or those, I'll call them community classrooms. So again, I recognize the identification piece, but I'm just wondering if part of the decline could also be due to parents choosing to stay in a community classroom. But what my question is, are there resources and supports available to teachers to ensure that they are able to reach the varying levels of learning styles in the classroom?
Thanks, Margot, for that question. And so maybe I could just kind of back up a little bit and talk about Standard 2 of our special education plan, because it does describe that our model for special education is inclusion in the regular classroom to the greatest extent possible, and then seeking other programs or placements when the regular classroom is not meeting the students' learning needs. And so this really forms the foundation of the changes that were implemented a few years ago with regards to the problem-solving pathway and the screening for giftedness. So the problem-solving pathway is initiated, and this is true for all of our students, regardless of what the area of need, is, or what the problem is that's getting in the way of that child's learning. So it's initiated when the student presents with a need and there's further input or information that's needed to explore the appropriate instructional strategies, interventions, perhaps eventually an assessment, and depending on the outcome of the assessment, possibly another placement. If after all of those strategies and interventions, the child is still not successful in that regular classroom. So that's the model for all of our students and their special education needs. So our goal is always to explore the options to support the student in the regular classroom first, and self-contained placements when those interventions are exhausted. So, in terms of, what ABC is suggesting, and I appreciate that their position is that our numbers are lower in our self-contained gifted classes in the primary area, and therefore the problem-solving pathway is not working. And this is really something that I think is worth exploring and really digging into. Is the problem-solving pathway not working? Are we missing students? Or are the numbers lower, in fact, because it is working? Because through the problem-solving pathway, we're coming together as a team. We're discussing what are the presenting needs for that student in the classroom. Our speech and language pathologist, our psychologists, CERT, CYC, all of the experts around the table are contributing to the teacher's kind of portfolio or collection of strategies and approaches within that regular classroom to see what else can be tried to make it work. And on top of that, we've invested quite a bit in the professional development of our primary teachers and really developing a series of instructional approaches and strategies and assessment approaches to differentiate their program to meet the varied learners in the classroom. Because we know that the vast majority of our students are in a regular classroom. Our students, excuse me, who might end up in a life skills program by grade 4, or students who may end up in a LD class by grade 4, or students who are gifted, that range of learners in our classroom where our primary teacher has expanded their skill set to meet those varied needs. So to really understand, are the numbers lower because the skill set of our primary teachers are stronger? We've made that investment in their professional development, and we're using our team of experts through the school resource team process and that problem-solving pathway to really dig in and understand the student, and therefore they're not needing an assessment at that point. They're not needing a self-contained placement. Or is it that we're missing students? So I think we really want to get in and explore this a little further next year.
Can I have a follow-up on that, please? So in saying that then, so what I'm wondering then, so Yaleen is saying that there is a decline of numbers in gifted self-contained classrooms. So really my wonder would be, is if the problem-solving pathway is working, do we then see that similar decline in other self-contained classrooms? And I think Sean might be the one who can answer that question. I don't know.
Well, I'll have Sean speak to our numbers if he has them handy. But the vast majority of our self-contained classrooms don't start until grade 4. So our LD self-contained placements start in grade 4. Our life skills self-contained placements start in grade 4. We have a few programs that are early interventions for language delays or alternative communication and some very unique learners in the primary grades. But all of our other self-contained placements begin in grade 4 because our foundational belief is that the regular classroom, as we get to know the learner, as we get to know their needs and how they're presenting and what works for them, that all of that can happen in the primary classroom.
Thank you, Colette. And I guess I just have a quick question, or two quick questions. First of all, do we have any data on how many parents are asking for an assessment and for a different environment for their child versus what the school thinks that they can accommodate? So is there a discrepancy between parent expectation and school confidence is one area. And then secondly, I know that ABC, part of the reason why they ultimately decided that they would support the elimination, support the whole group in the elimination of the grade 1 testing was to improve access to psychologists for other exceptionalities. And that was a major thing that ABC gave up in order to support the wider community. I guess my question would be, have we seen that assessments for other exceptionalities have increased? Have we taken that load which ABC gave up and used those resources to diagnose other exceptionalities that need support, and therefore that as a group we can thank ABC for their altruism then or is it that gain or that thing they gave up did not lead to any particular gain for our other exceptionalities?
Thanks, Allison. That's a great question. I do have our assessment data from this year, which I'm happy to share. I don't have comparative data, and maybe anecdotally, Sean has that in his back pocket. But how about I share with you the assessment data that I have for this year, and this is certainly brought to light that we want to gather our data in a little bit of a different way so that we can dig deeper. But our psych staff have completed 590 assessments this year. Out of those 590, 215 were for gifted. And certainly the most out of those 215 for gifted were subsequent assessments as a result of the grade 4 ability screening. So out of the 215, 9 assessments were from primary or for primary students. So I certainly acknowledge that this is a reduction in assessments over time for our primary learners based on simply the number of students that came forward for primary self-contained placements 2018 and earlier versus 2019 and onwards. But I guess that goes back to, less of an emphasis on assessing for a placement and really talking about students, what's their learning need, what's not working, and trying strategies in the regular classroom. And so, it's natural as we focus on targeting the area of need within the classroom and lifting the skills of the primary teachers to meet the needs of differentiated learners, that the need for self-contained placements would decrease. Sean, I don't know anecdotally if you have any information about what numbers look like for assessment.
Not for assessments. I can only speak to anecdotally the numbers in self-contained classes. They've remained fairly consistent over the past 3 years, slight fluctuations, but we have fluctuation in the overall population. But to Colette's point around assessments and then how that drives supports in the classrooms through our department as well as the certs in the schools, the number of IEPs would be a good indicator of that. And we've remained fairly consistent around the 12,500, 13,000 over the past few years. But the actual assessments and then to identifications, we'd have to follow up with our psych staff as well as our IPRC.
Okay, great. Thank you, Margot.
Yeah, so again, I'm coming back following on from that assessment piece. So I don't know if I'm confused. So do we equate assessment to self-contained classroom? If you're assessed, do you see that as a direct route to self-contained? Or again, what Sean was saying was that we still have between 12,500 to 13,000 IEPs of all children, which I would recognize it would be students within the main classroom with supports, but they still have that identification to support teachers in knowing how to support those children. So I'm curious, Paulette, and Yaleen, when we were talking about assessment, does that have a direct correlation to placement in a self-contained classroom? If you're assessed as gifted, is the natural pathway for them to go into self-contained? Because I didn't think it was.
Yeah, and this is really to the point that ABC has raised around, the really communication of the options to parents. And so Yaleen highlighted one of the strategies that we've been working on, which is the video. So once a student meets criteria for a gifted identification, we're developing a video that explains their options. So you have the option to remain in a regular class with the different levels of support, what that looks like. And then you have the option of a self-contained program, and then there's information about what the self-contained program looks like. And then that video is really the starting point to open up the conversation with the school around, what what would be best for the individual student. And so this, information is to Yalene's point, is really to make sure that all of our families are getting a really consistent message about what the options are before them. I would suggest that, as early in primary, in all likelihood, the reason for assessment is for a placement, because, it's after we have exhausted many of the strategies and tools in the regular classroom, and it's still not working. And then assessment is the next tool to explore whether there are placement options. It's always the parent's choice in terms of whether remaining in a regular class with this new information is the preferred approach, or a self-contained placement. So one doesn't have to lead to the other. It's a parent choice. But certainly at that stage in the child's educational career, in all likelihood, if we're assessing, it's because we've tried all these other things. It's still not working in the regular classroom. So now let's do an assessment and see if a placement is an option. So it often leads to a self-contained placement in the primary grades, but not always.
Yeah, I just find that a little bit, I don't know if backward, I figure that when you assess a child and you get to know their needs and everything like that, so the assessment is done for the tools of the teacher, so that the teacher can then say, okay, I have this child that is gifted in my class. I have this child that has a learning disability in my class. I have this child who has a developmental delay in this class. So now I need to look at how I'm going to create a lesson in a way that can meet the needs of all my learners in the class. So I'm just struggling with that idea that assessment is not seen as a tool, but rather a pathway, which I struggle with that just a tiny bit.
Well, and what I would say to that, Margot, is that if we're talking about a psychoeducational assessment, so the big A assessment, as opposed to all of those assessments that a teacher is doing throughout the days, weeks, months that student is in the classroom, bringing those assessments to a school resource team for discussion, for collaboration with the psychoeducational consultant, the speech language pathologist, the CERT, to get input. So we don't need a big A assessment to provide some guidance to the classroom teacher on how to meet that student's needs, because we're managing a very finite resource, right? We have 22 psychoeducational consultants who are looking to support the range of learners, the range of needs, and the range of assessments that they need to do. So we do look at how can we provide guidance and using some small A assessments to support the teacher and try different strategies to try to get it right before we go to the big A assessment, which is a very finite resource. And then, which often gives us much of the information that we already knew, that the teacher had already gathered, that the CERT had already gathered, and that the psychoeducational consultant had already, identified some targeted strategies. So that's why I'm saying that by the time we get to a formal assessment, it's often because many conversations have happened already, tried many strategies, and now we need more information and a different placement.
Yeah, I still struggle because I for me, I just think so with the big A assessment, which then gets you that formal identification, it then also holds the schools accountable to make sure they are addressing the needs of that student. So you have the parents who understand and have that tool in their back pocket to say, you need to help my child with this. And again, I fully believe in having all children in a classroom. And so looking at how we can use that big A tool to keep them in the classroom. And again, as my question was before, is what types of resources, what kind of training? So again, to Yalene's point, are we having training? And you spoke to the training that we have for teachers to understand how to stretch those gifted learners, how to support and accommodate for those children with learning disabilities. And again, what Allison was saying, that whole idea of that whole child piece of in the main classroom. And I'm going to be quiet because I see there's 2 other questions and I'm just banging on. So thank you.
Okay, Diane.
Yes, I'm just going to pull up the document for my question because it sort of ties into all the assessments. In the report on page 52, where it was talking about assessments, I noticed for one of the assessments, it can take up to a year. Some of the other assessments were 8 months. And then there was a whole section on page 52 I just wanted clarification for, because it talked about assessments conducted outside of the Halton District School Board. So I'm assuming that's where parents maybe want an assessment quicker than it perhaps will come from the Halton District School Board. But it talks about how there's no consistent standards for criteria for identification, so that in some cases, each school board is left to determine its own criteria, and the board does not automatically recognize previous identifications and placements held by students. So I guess my question is, if a parent does choose to have their child assessed because they feel there's something, whether it's a special need or whether it's a gifted learner, whatever the exceptionality happens to be, and the wait list may be up to a year in some cases, or 8 months, they do go to an outside assessment. On what basis is it determined, or when does the board either accept that assessment from an outside source? When does it reject it? And what's the criteria that it uses to determine that it's going to use, or even if somebody comes with an exceptionality or an assessment from somewhere else, and then because there's no set criteria, the board maybe doesn't accept that. So that's where my question came around.
Great question, Diane. So we do review what we call outside assessments. So our staff this year reviewed 592 outside assessments. Those are assessments from other school boards, other countries, as well as families who have chosen to go get a private assessment. And that's across all of our exceptionalities. In terms of the criteria, the ministry sets some very general criteria, but not specific enough. And it is left to each individual school board to then set the specific criteria for identification. And that identification is attached to that particular school board. So any student moving from one school board to another school board within the province of Ontario, or between provinces, certainly, that exceptionality doesn't come with them. The process has to restart in the school board that they arrive in. So a student coming from Toronto may have been identified gifted in Toronto, moved to Halton. They aren't identified here because they have to go through a Halton IPRC process, and they need to meet the criteria. So we would review the report that was generated by the Toronto District School Board. And if the scoring in that report met our scoring for intellectual giftedness, then we would proceed on for a formal identification and consider a placement. So you're right. It's very challenging for families. I think it's a natural assumption that you think in the province of Ontario, just moving, to the neighboring school board, all of that information is going to come. And the information comes, but you have to go through the IPRC process again and meet the criteria set out by the school board. So we would love to see a provincial, very clear, consistent standard. I'm not sure that the ministry is planning on going there, but that's certainly feedback that they've received from school boards over the years. We would all appreciate a consistent standard for the identification of exceptionalities. In fairness to families, it would make sense. It would make sense for them too. I think I answered all your questions, but if there's one I forgot, Diane, please remind me.
No, thank you.
Heather.
Thank you. Just before I ask my question, I really like what Colette just had to say, and maybe Margot and I need to be thinking about a motion to write a letter to the province. Anyway, I know you're shaking your head, but the consistency for sure across our province, across our country, doesn't do our kids any favors, and that's not okay. So I'm going to ask my question now, and some of it has been answered, but we're doing phenomenal PD for our teachers, and I think that's helping with our students in a big way, and it's helping to keep them in the classrooms with their peers. When we find that the classroom is becoming a little busy with kids with exceptionalities, do we seriously consider putting a support system in there, i.e. an EA in there? And are we continuing to provide our EAs with top-notch PD to support our kids? That's my question.
So you've touched on another very finite resource, our educational assistants. We have a mechanism where we evaluate the students' needs and whether they generate some educational assistance support. And really those needs focus on safety and personal care. I hate to say that we don't have the number of EAs to provide the support for learning needs in our classrooms as a sole standalone need. That our primary focus for the allocation of educational assistance is safety and personal care. And so once we assign out our educational assistants based on those two primary areas of need, and those EAs are assigned to schools, so ultimately it is the school's decision on how to maximize that resource within the classroom and determine how to prioritize the needs in the building. There's not a pocket of educational assistance left over to support the learning environment for some of our students who may benefit from that additional one-to-one support for on-task learning or behavioral supports. But really, our priority is safety and personal care. And so that's how we allocate out our educational assistants. And I've now totally forgotten your second question, Heather. I'm sorry.
Well, that really kind of covers it. May I have a follow-up, please? So
Yes.
maybe we need to write another letter, Margot. Of course, you probably know that I knew the answer to this, but I had to ask a question. I'm wondering, throwing this out in the air, I'm wondering, EAs are not paid super well. They're not an expensive resource. And I'm wondering if supporting our students within a regular classroom would be, with a supporting EA, would be less expensive if it comes down to dollars and cents, because oftentimes with the government it does. If it would be less expensive than having self-contained classes, and would it be better at the end of the day? Would it be better for our students' learning?
Yeah, and that's a really, really hard question to answer, because the unique learning needs of each individual student and that ability to have that synergy in a self-contained classroom where whether it's like-minded peers or students that are working on similar learning goals, there's a benefit to that. But there's also a benefit to that inclusion perspective in the classroom and being in their community school. So there are pros and cons to both sides. And we know we had Roxana here last month, I think it was. We know that we're already $19 million overspent in our special education envelope. Our educational assistant allocation is being supported by the funding that we're receiving through the COVID envelope. So I think it's about 35 FTE that we are adding to our system using those funds. So when those funds are gone, that will be 35 FTE that we are losing from our system that are supporting some of our highest needs students. And so it's something that we're going to really have to grapple with around how do we maximize this resource, which may in the end might not be as expensive as a self-contained placement, but again, we're already $19 million overspent in the special education envelope. And so, you know, I'll channel Roxana, what are we going to give up to get that? And that's a hard question. And we could have 10 people in the room, and I'm not sure that we get 10 people to agree, right? Because every child is so unique, and what's going to work for one student or for one family might not be the right fit for the next family.
Okay, I'm going to actually put my hand down. So are there any other questions regarding the special education plan at this time? Rebecca.
I just actually really wanted to quickly tag onto Heather and Margot's letters that they're writing, because there's also no consistency for families with the IEP when they switch from board to board. We have a standardized report card, but we do not have a standardized IEP platform. So it's different from board to board. So when families come over, and Halton's looks very different from, say, Toronto or Peel. I just find that interesting that there's no consistency for that either, if we're talking about consistency in assessments and IPRCs, that type of thing.
Great, thank you. So at this point in time, it's now almost 8 o'clock. And so the 10 minutes was a little bit longer. But we do have to take a vote on the support of the special education plan that has been put forward by the Halton District School Board to the SEAC committee. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to record it by association. So each association that's present tonight has a representative. If the representative is not present, then the alternative can vote. But Lucille, if you would like to take the roll call.
Yes. Well, I'll start with ABC.
ABC will vote not to support. Thank you.
Autism Ontario.
Lisa, we can't hear you. If your mic's not working, do you want to put something in the chat? Perhaps while we're waiting for that, Lou, we move on.
Community Living.
We don't have a representative, I don't think.
Easter Seals.
Who's the rep for Easter Seals? Do we have? We don't have Melissa here tonight, yeah? Wait.
Halton Down Syndrome. Rebecca.
We're in support.
Learning Disabilities.
We're in support.
Voice.
I don't think we have a rep here.
Members at Large, James.
I support it.
Diane Miller.
In support.
Myself, in support.
So then we have the two trustees, yeah?
Margot.
Yeah, in support.
And Heather.
I support it.
So the one I'm just trying to make sure we've collected. Lisa, is there anything you could put in the chat to indicate if I got?
Hi there. Autism Ontario supports the program. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So let it be recorded that ABC does not support the special education plan, but all other associations and members and trustees present did.
Alison, sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Can I ask? So we have 3 associations that were not
Missing. Yeah.
here.
So we have.
Make note of that.
So yes, so we have, so let's just do the votes in votes yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 voted yes. 3 were not present and 1 voted against. So we'll have the minutes record that. Okay, so our 10 minutes is up. And we're going to move on. We actually have a visitor here, which is great. We have Dayani Mathai, and please correct me if I butchered that. You know, it was not very well pronounced. Please tell me. But Dayani's the Manager of Employment Services at Community Living, I understand, and you're here to present to us tonight on the wonderful work that Community Living does for us.
Great, thank you, Allison. Is there a way for me to share a PowerPoint? Yeah, okay.
Yes, I think you should be able to share it straight away.
Straight away? Okay, fantastic. Like Allison mentioned, I'm from Community Living Burlington. I oversee employment program and also volunteers and student placements. Today, I'm just filling in for Candace Keem. So I will do my best. So I'm going to share. Let's see. So, sorry, Google Meet is new to me. I usually do. So do I do a window? Okay, window. Got it. Okay. Share. There you go. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, perfect. I can just start the slides. Everyone can view this? Okay. Okay, perfect. So I'll just start off. So we're from Community Living Burlington, and our tagline is "Possibilities are endless." That's what we believe, and that kind of motivates us to create new, innovative programming at our agency.
Dayani, can I just stop you? I think you're on employment services background. Is that where you want to be to start with?
I could just do the whole agency.
Yeah, it's up to you. Do you want to just talk? It's just you're on slide 8 right now. Do you want to be on slide 8, or do you want to be?
Oh no.
Okay,
I wanted to start from the beginning.
Yeah,
okay.
That's great.
Is that okay? Should I just keep it on this screen instead of doing slideshow? Is this better?
It's fine. Everything's fine, I think.
Everything's fine? Okay.
Yep.
Perfect, because I can't view my own screen. Okay. Okay, wonderful. So at Community Living Burlington, as you're already aware of, we're the oldest oldest nonprofit organization in Burlington since 1955, and we support over 400 children and adults who have developmental disability. And our mission is to enrich the quality of life and to promote full and meaningful inclusion in our community of individuals who have a developmental disability. So we have a variety of services, starting from children's services all the way up to seniors. So my specialty is employment services, finding paid employment for people we support in the community. We also have different day program options depending on the level of independence of the adult we're supporting. So we have life skills program. It's more geared for people who require higher level of support. We have respite program for families to give the intro of break right after school programs. We have a few other day programs. They're just run out of different sites in Burlington. So it's kind of named after the site, like the Rotary Youth Center, the Tansley Woods programs. They're all day programs, it's just at different locations. And we have the Starter Right Day program, which is run at our Compass Point Church. And we also, thanks to Candace, we've been able to initiate a virtual day program during the time, the last 2 years due to COVID, and that has been very successful. So I'll touch on each of them really quickly because I don't want to take too long with the presentation. So Children's Inclusion Services, we have resource consultants, part of our employed by Community Living Burlington, who go in to support children at preschools and daycare centers. Make sure there is power there. Okay, there you go. So we work in partnership with childcare centers, nursery schools, and they are wonderful. They are giving intervention strategies, assisting with service coordination and transitional support. Families and staff work as a team to ensure the childcare experience is positive. So these are resources. It's a small team that we have of 4 who work with Community Living Burlington. The next is the employment services program. So as you're aware, like we have people in the community doing paid, meaningful, competitive jobs. So we support over 50 employers. We assist with job coaching, employment planning, actually finding the placement, fading out support, and kind of checking in to make sure things are going well, like job retention. I have a quick video to play, which I'm really excited. It just came out.
Okay, we've lost Danny, but I'm sure she'll be back any minute now.
I think she just clicked the wrong button.
Yep. There we are. We got you back.
I was like, where did everybody go?
That's okay. That's okay.
I was like, oh my goodness, sorry about that. So I'll play this video that we just released this week. It's an employment promotional video, and I think picture speaks 1,000 words, so it's wonderful. So let me play it for you guys.
I like the environment and the pace, and everyone's friendly.
I'm Derek and I work at U-Haul. I love it.
I like working here and I love it here very much.
Is your workplace looking for reliable employees?
I work as a cashier in the donation center, and I roll items out onto the floors. One of my goals for the future is to become a supervisor.
The ring I got when I was 10 years here, and the diamond I got for 15 years. I clean the trucks, the cabs, making sure that everything is clean.
I work here for 25 years. I do garbage, wipe off the table, and sweep. I like it here because the people is so very nice, and I like my customers so nice.
Our employment services team has access to motivated, skilled, and dependable workers. Visit us at our website, clburlington.ca, to learn more about how to find your next employee.
Okay, so just a little glimpse, and it's great because the schools, you're doing an amazing job, and as I'm hearing all the identification process and trying to get people getting the right supports in place, all that comes in handy when they come out of school and when we start working with the young people and getting them into different streams and helping them meet their goals. So it's much appreciated, and we are so lucky because we've been able to partner with Halton Catholic School Board, and they have a program called GROW, which has been wonderful, helping pre-employment skills to be built for adults who lack employment experience. So it's been great working with that team as well. So I'll go back to the presentation. I'll continue on. So we have okay. So you're at employment slide, I assume. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. As you know, we're there. And then life skills, like I mentioned, it's for people who have very high support needs. We are actually in the middle of changing names. So we wanted to make all the programs kind of work together as a team. So maybe we're changing it to like My Way, where people get to choose like a menu of things that they want to do for their day. So there's a big transition that's happening like this summertime. We're revamping all these programs. So you'll probably hear more about it from Candace. As you're aware, we also provide residential services. There's supported independent living, live-in managers, 24 shift care, and life share. So we have homes that are 24-hour staffed, and also like supported independent living, where people are very independent and just require minimal support of groceries or banking. So we have staff going in for 10 to 12 hours a week to assist with that. So there's different arrangements depending on what the person is interested in. The next thing, so just going in more, is that we have over 120 individuals being supported in the residential programs. We have 29 group homes in Burlington area, and this is the 24-hour homes. And we have over 26 individuals living in our semi-independent living programs in homes and in apartment buildings. And so it's great. So this is probably something that families would be interested as well, is the Respite Services. It's providing a safe and caring environment to allow parents and caregivers an interval of rest from their busy schedule. It also allows participants to engage in community activities, arts and crafts, and more. So this is between 2:30 to 8:30 on Monday to Friday, and on Saturdays from 9 to 5 p.m. Like I mentioned, the programs are kind of named after the site. So we have a day program, like an extension of life skills that runs out of Rotary Youth Center. And then we have Study Right program. This is a great program for anyone who has maybe like 1 to 4 support or 1 to 3 support. They're a lot more independent. They're able to feed and do personal hygiene themselves. So this would be great because you would be in a small group going out into the community, doing inclusive activities, volunteering, basically to build life skills or essential skills that can eventually lead them into living on their own or finding employment in the community later on. The next one is the Tansley Woods Day program. A few years ago, before COVID, this used to be a seniors program. So now the funding has changed. So now it's become just a regular day program, but it's run out of the Tansley Woods Community Center. And it's very similar. It's offering people choices to participate in various activities. They get to choose depending on their interest and abilities. And then it helps older folks to get together and to have that friendship and social circle as well. So it's run out of there. This is Candace's baby, virtual day programs. And we're so proud of this because I think our agency has done amazingly well with the virtual online programming, thanks to our incredible coordinator, James. We were able to offer Monday to Friday, and every hour there's a different activity that people can participate in. They could, like for example, I'll just pull up. There's fitness, yoga, Zumba, karaoke, mindfulness. You see a picture of me. At one point, I was teaching ukulele there. So it's a really fun and exciting way to learn a new skill with friends. And it actually grew over the last couple of years. Now we have 40, 60 people logging in each activity during the week. And it's kind of great because it's actually kind of moved away from just Halton, like people from different areas are also joining because of the virtual accessibility of this program. So that's great. And we do have annual events like Walk and Roll and Community Living's Got Talent. If you had the opportunity to attend that, those are great fundraisers that we have. I'm going to stop sharing there. And okay, good. Because I feel like it's nice to have interaction as well. If you had any questions or if you want to find out, I did ask Candace like how things work right after a student graduate from the school board. So she mentioned that she's kind of like the go-to person for a lot of transitional planning. So it would be her and a transitional committee and people from Halton Supports, the caseworkers. It will be a combined effort. Everyone will be helping the family and the individual figuring out what's the right program, if it's to go into a pre-employment program to build skills, or if it's coming straight into employment, if they had some good co-op experience, or if it's just into day programs, depending on their level of independence. So yeah, so
great.
Feel free.
Thank you, Diane. It's I just wanted to say it's amazing. I'm not surprised, maybe I shouldn't be, but the number of residential homes you have in Burlington, that's amazing, fantastic.
Yeah. And you can't tell because you don't even know where they are.
No,
like
but
a new community, but
yeah.
The need is just growing so much, and I think we.
But it's lovely to see the independence and that. So that's absolutely wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for Diane? Rebecca.
That was fantastic. And again, I absolutely agree with Chair Allison, how you don't even know that these communities, I actually found out through COVID that we had several communities in our neighborhood. And the only reason we knew is because they had to post the COVID rules on the front doors. And it was like, oh, okay. Like we had no idea. So that it's phenomenal. We always know there's need for more, but the base that we have is amazing. I just have a quick clarification, and I think you just touched on it there. do families go through Halton Support Services until the age of 21 and then they come over into yours, or is there any overlap between those two, between Halton Support Services and your services?
So after 19, it depends like how long they're going to be in school. But you can start inquiring, I think. Like Candace would be like more, she would know the exact details, what the process is. But I like, even for employment, we always say like to families, like once you're 19, start planning ahead, because sometimes spots fill up, especially if it's day programs. We're constantly inventing new programs and things. Like, for example, during the COVID season, we kind of exploded with volunteers because we had so many people isolated in these group homes and they couldn't go out. They could not see their families. It was a really, really, really sad time for a lot of the folks we were supporting. So we got a little grant from the Halton United Way, and I was kind of initiated to create a virtual buddies program. So we were, in the last couple of years, we had 72 post-secondary students, like from colleges and university, have one-on-one buddy matches with the people we support. And it was just incredible to see the friendship and connections that was being formed. So I think what's nice is like about Community Burlington is we have such a wonderful staff team who are constantly listening to the needs. So if there is a need for like more day program spots, they're thinking about creative ways to create new programming. So there's that, yeah. But to answer your question, I would say like start at 19 just to inquire with the actual community partner themselves. But definitely Halton Supports is they have to be involved as well, yeah.
So, and just following up on that, so your respite service is for older individuals, like out of school?
I can double check. I thought it was for high school students as well. So it was for a younger group, yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. Great. So anybody other questions? Well, I want to thank you so much, Danny, for putting up with our long conversation about the special education plan, but also for coming and talking to us about this. There's certainly things that I didn't know were in our community, and it's wonderful to hear about so many opportunities. As the Learning Disabilities Association, we share space in the Rotary Centre. So it's always wonderful to see your community members out and about and doing things. So yeah, it's great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. And feel free to leave if you want to. You can carry on, but feel free to go and relax with your family. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
And you. Okay, so at this point, we're now at item 2.3, which is a quick discussion about the forum for our special education, our SEAC meeting in September. And as we prepare for that, we just wanted to understand if people would like the September meeting to be online or in person. So does anybody have any view at this time? I know that 3 months in the life of COVID is a long time. But with the way things are going right now, and assuming, the world is getting back to some kind of normality, what are people's thoughts? Margot.
You caught me mid-sip.
Yeah.
So I am a big supporter of in-person. We had our first a hybrid model, actually. So giving people the opportunity to do whatever they feel more comfortable in doing. We did that for our first board meeting of May. And it was really interesting because the group of us that were there were able to talk to each other in that informal piece, whereas the people who were online were kind of at a disadvantage because they said, Margot, your mic's muted. I said, well, I'm not talking to you. So I think it's that informal relationship piece that we have been missing for 2 years in this kind of relationship, but instead of this kind of relationship, really, I think impacts the group. So I would be very much for allowing a hybrid approach in the future.
Lucille.
I feel like I'm in a debating society because I'd like to say that I would like the first meeting to be an online meeting where we have more members present, because we were missing 3, and just so that people can think about it, and then we can have, a vote, just an informal vote, because we have to plan for the September meeting. So I'm just suggesting that we go ahead with it online and then plan for the October meeting. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any thoughts? Colette.
I was just going to say that, just a reminder that at this point in time, the legislation to have a virtual meeting is set to expire, I think, by the end of October. Now, whether it gets extended or becomes permanent, I guess is anybody's guess. But at this point in time, the ability for virtual is up until the election, which I think is, I know it's October. I'm not exactly sure when in October, but
24th.
Okay, so the end of October, I guess, that this virtual opportunity expires. So just to Lucille's point, we can certainly virtual in September and decide October, and then the government might decide for us what happens after that. There's certainly, or a hybrid, as Margot suggests, but just so you know that after October, it's possibly out of our hands.
Okay, great. Heather.
I was going to actually ask when the government was going to cut us off on this. And I love the idea of the hybrid, allowing those that want to stay at home can do so, but those of us that want to be and see real humans instead of a 2D screen. I'm so tired of looking at 2D screens, guys. I want to see you in person. You're humans, not computer.
Anybody else want to add a comment? I mean, I guess what the compromise would be a hybrid solution, in that allows people to do whatever they feel comfortable with until the government has decided. Is that something we're prepared to put forward as a motion and vote on? Margot.
So just to, again, so I am all for the hybrid, but just so you are aware, Allison, it is a lot more work as chair to be managing screens as well. But it's not unmanageable, and I'm very happy to help you through it because I've now done it. And I will hopefully have done it at least one more time before we see each other again in this situation. But it is more work to manage. But again, I think it allows that flexibility for those people who don't feel comfortable, who still are, or who have health conditions, who are struggling or whatever it is. But having that flexibility allows that choice, which is really, I think, a lot about what we as a board should be looking at doing, is providing choice.
Yeah. Anybody else got a comment? Do we want to put forward a motion to go hybrid, or do we feel uncomfortable and want to say September will just carry on as normal and decide it in October? Anybody got a view? Darlene.
I'm in support of hybrid. I think, as after this summer, I think a lot of things are getting normalized, and hybrid, I think, is September, and certainly give people the option that, to try, if they can, and to be in person, but also to remain online. But I think in September, we can discuss more. And because if the government legislation expires in October, I think then in September, and whether we're in person or a hybrid, and so that gave everybody at least a chance to try it out in person as well. So people who wants to try out in person, like for me, I've been with the committee for over a year, but I have no idea where I will be in person. So I don't know how long it will take me to drive there. And so I think it would be nice to have at least a taste. And so for me to see if, how I can plan and to continue and with my work with the committee and what is the commitment required. So I will no longer be able to just finish my dinner and walk upstairs into the room and I'm in the meeting. So there's a lot of planning. So if we're moving back to in person, I think, but at least to have that kind of taste. And, in September, instead of, everything government mandate expires and everybody has to be in person, and it will become a shock. And I think to some people, that is my opinion. And because it's volunteer work, and so I do have a full-time job that so require a lot more of my time and the commitment. So I think it's in planning part, and I would appreciate some of those flexibility or opportunity to try it out.
Okay, so I'm hearing multiple voices saying that let's at least try hybrid for September. That will allow us, unless there's a change in the government rules and we all have to be online, that's fine, but we try hybrid. And then anybody that wants to join there can come. Does, I don't know if you have to do a motion or whatever, but I guess what I'm hearing is that is the overall voice of the members here. We'll try hybrid and then see. Are you okay with that, Lucille?
Yes, I'm okay. I still would prefer if we just met virtually for the first meeting, but if we want to go hybrid, I'm fine with that.
Okay, great. So I think I don't know if we need a vote, but what I'm thinking is that from what I see right here is that we will arrange to have our meeting in September as a hybrid meeting, and see how that works, having had 2 years of online meetings.
I think we should then probably, if we're going to do that with the agenda, we should send out where we meet, because as Yelin said, she's never been to the Singleton Centre, so we might have to do a bit more. Yeah.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, thank you. The next item is that obviously there's going to be a municipal election. I think it's October the 24th. And that our trustees will be sworn in for service in December of 2022. And at this point, we have to reappoint our SEAC committee members. So while the associations have the ability to appoint or suggest membership for their associations, there are members at large who have to put forward an application and be selected to join us on SEAC. And what I want to just have a very brief discussion about is how do we make that as inclusive and accessible for as many people as possible? How do we advertise it? What do we want to do to make sure that we hear the voices of everybody in our community, or at least they have the opportunity to put forward their application for a member at large position. So I understand, Lucille, you were a member at large before, and I think you said you had to apply for something.
Yes, when I first became a member of at large, I answered an ad in the local newspaper. I'm not sure about James and Diane, so perhaps they could tell me how they came to be on the committee.
Yeah, Diane.
I had heard about it through the school, and so was interested that way. And that was going to be my suggestion. If we, through the school newsletters, are able to engage them to put out a notification before the end of the year that so you get a wide range of individuals perhaps who might be interested. It could go through that way, as well as on the HDSB website. to let people know that way as well. But I think the schools are the best firsthand source, because that's where you get the parent council members, or even a notification through, if the parent councils haven't had their last meetings, that could be something that's brought up so that they can share with others as well.
Yeah, Lucille.
The other thing I would also suggest is maybe the associations speak to their parent groups to see if anybody from their groups might be interested, and things like that, because we are trying to get the widest range of input into the committee. And we have a lot of staff, of Board of Ed staff, and we have the representatives from the associations. But for instance, I have no affiliation to any society or to the Board of Education. So I do think that it is quite important to try and reach just local people who would then be interested in being part of the committee.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And one thing I would just like to say, I mean, again, looking around the table here, we are predominantly female. We are predominantly white, predominantly middle class. I do think there are voices that are missing from this table, that we need to make some efforts to engage, to have sitting at the table representing more diverse communities with special education needs and intersectionalities of other struggles. So I don't know what, Colette, we can do from, I know that the director's been having his group meetings, but maybe there are some participants from that we could reach out to and say, you know, if you're interested in special education, this might be a forum. So Colette.
Yeah, I appreciate that point, Allison, and I would agree that it would be a great opportunity to recruit, you know, that intersectionality of identities that are represented, or that should be represented on SEAC. I think our Human Rights and Equity and Indigenous Rights Department has many community connections. One being, of course, the Human Rights and Equity Advisory Council. We also have an Indigenous Advisory Council. And so that is one way to kind of get the word out through those community collaborations that we already have, and then through those two councils. And not to suggest that we would want someone sitting on one council to sit on another, but just, you know, to get the word out through their networks. To bring in that diversity, I think is a great suggestion.
Yeah, James.
I think it would be possible or helpful to post an ad at your local libraries. I think you really need to get a lot more exposure to different types of people.
Yeah, no, great. And we can certainly look at how we do that. Rebecca.
I even think reaching out to our Halton Support Services, Burlington Community Services, you know, again, they've got a range of families of diversity, but also of age span, as we just heard, that can talk about their experiences and that type of thing. I had originally heard about SEAC from our principal. She approached me and asked me to put in an application for a member at large. At the time, it didn't work. So I've come in now since through Halton Down syndrome. But I think, again, sending out to the principals, I love the idea about the parent councils, because I know our parent council hasn't had their last meeting yet. And even just like I can't even think what the name is, but the email blast that comes out from the board about the surveys and that type of thing. It could always go out through that. We've got everybody's contact for that as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I think what we need to do, maybe Colette, is separately sit down and work out what we can do and what groups we can connect with to fill these member at large voices and make sure that we are hearing as many different concerns as possible as we hire for the member at large.
And just to confirm that the term of all of our SEAC members is the same term as our Board of Trustees. And with the election in October, Heather, do you know, I want to say it's December that the new board is sworn in. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So I guess we're looking at that same timeline of December for kind of the reappointment of SEAC members that are returning from their associations, or if associations are putting forward new representatives, and then of course, as Allison has said, those members at large.
Yeah, and my recommendation again, just as a thought, would be that we don't actually start advertising this until September. Nobody, when it's too far away, nobody bothers to do anything. It needs to be as the schools get in and people are re-energized about getting their kids back to school, that we start to reach out and see who might be willing to come on board with us. So there'll be a discussion that we can have in preparation for the September meeting, perhaps, Colette. Okay, great. Thank you for your ideas and feedback. And so the last item on our action items is the proposed SEAC meeting dates for next year. Everybody was sent a list. Does anybody have any problems with any of the dates as they were outlined? Nope. Oh, Heather?
Sorry, did you run the dates through our communication department to make sure that we're not stepping on any toes of religious holidays, etc.?
As far as I know, that was done, and our October 11th meeting takes into consideration Yom Kippur on October 4th, and our January one is on the 10th as opposed to the 3rd. Okay. So I think that was done.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there's no concerns, we'll move forward with these dates as they are outlined here. And if anything comes up as a new holiday created, we'll take that into account as we move forward. So at this stage now, it's 8:36. Anybody have any questions that they'd want to put to SEAC? Nope. Okay, we will move on to item 4.0, Superintendent's Report.
Oops. So just a couple of things to update you on this evening. We have quite a robust selection of summer learning opportunities for students that you can find on the board's Summer Learning and Tutoring Supports webpage. Offerings from Student Wellbeing, the Welcome Center, school programs, our Gary Allen Summer School, and community partners, as well as, of course, offerings through special education. And I'm going to have Sean jump in and give you an update on those offerings.
Thank you. So currently we have approximately 500 students that have registered for the summer learning, which is just under half of what we've had over the past 2 years, which we take as a good sign. It means that our students are accessing things outside and that their summer activities and camps are opening up again. Our first block, July 4th to the 18th or to the 14th, has 300 registrations. So that's the significant number. People taking advantage of that early part of the summer right after school. Then we drop down to around 190 students for the second block. And then we have a booster program for assistive technology later on in August, and we have right now roughly 50 students registered in that. Parents are going to be notified of which block their child or children are going to be registered in over the next couple of weeks. That's because we're going to be closing registrations as of the 15th. Things have pretty much slowed down to this point, but we want to keep it open just a little bit longer because we've just had this SEAC meeting, and so parents are going to be listening in and realizing they need to register. So they can contact their CERTs at their schools for the appropriate programs, but the registration goes through the CERTs. Thank you.
Also, sorry.
Carry on, Colette. Yep.
Also this summer, we have our psychoeducational consultants and our speech language pathologists conducting assessments. We anticipate approximately 100 additional assessments will be done through July and August. And we've also launched a request for proposals, or an RFP, for contract assessments. This is through a special envelope of money through the Ministry of Education to hire private companies to complete some of our assessments from the fall into December. And so between these two sources of additional assessments, the summer and the contract assessments, we are quite pleased to address some of the waitlist times in a significant way for those students who are waiting for an assessment. And lastly, this Friday is our special education, or our special athletes rather, track meet. And it is our 35th annual special athletes track meet. And our first one in person in a couple of years. So we're quite happy to be back in person. It's in person and virtual for those who can't or choose not to participate in person. We are welcoming over 430 students from life skills, communications programs, our regular classrooms, EC Drury, and we will be at Garth Webb and hoping for sunshine on Friday for a great day. And I just want to give a big shout out to our team that organizes this. This is a big undertaking, and that's something that they spend a great deal of time planning for, and we're quite excited. So a shout out to the team that's organizing it, as well as the Optimist Club that is providing lunch for everybody. So very excited for Friday. And lastly, much like Yaleen, I'm coming to the close of my first full year with SEAC, and I would like to thank all of you for your time and support in our special education programs, advocating for our students and for our families. It has been a great learning experience for me to be a part of this group, and really deepen my knowledge and understanding of how our students are supported, of course, in our schools, but also in our communities. So thank you for all of your time, your work, and what you do for our families. That's it for me.
Great. Well, thank you. And again, on behalf of the committee, we would like to thank you, Colette, for your passion and drive over the last year. I know it's not been easy. There's been a lot of things to navigate, but you're always open to new ideas, and we really do appreciate that as we continue to advocate for, as you say, our kids. So thank you. So the next thing is any association reports. Does anybody have any reports?
I can just give you a quick update. We did have our accessibility coordinating committee, and it was really very, very interesting and very, very informative. And it would take way too much time to tell you about everything, but it's just, we heard from all the department heads and from facilities and from HR, and everybody was talking about what they had done. So, for instance, from HR, they reviewed hiring practices, and then also training and resources for staff, taking into consideration COVID and a whole variety of things, and then the facilities. They updated us on the committee on new physical structures and door handles and cameras, and so it was through all of them. So in the end, I did ask if possibly they could come to one of our meetings to just tell us, because it was really very, very informative. And that's all I'm saying today.
Great, thank you. And that would be wonderful. We'll see if we can arrange something for next year to get somebody to come and present on the great work. Any other feedback from the associations? On our behalf for LDAHH, we are in the middle of a strategic plan review. So we're doing our 5-year strategic plan. So we're very welcome. We would love anybody's feedback on how we're doing as an organization. If you know us, if you don't know us, we'd like to know about it. So that work's going on. We also are working with all of the school boards in our region to provide summer programming. We estimate that we will serve approximately 800 students in Halton Hamilton over the summer period. So really excited about the supports we're able to provide, and excited about the opportunities we have to serve the Halton District School Board students. So if any parents who haven't signed up, that you need to get signed up and we can get and serve you. So, okay, Rebecca.
Sorry, Halton Down Syndrome is having their Halton Walk for Down Syndrome on Saturday, June the 18th. So families that have not registered their teams this year, we're looking forward. We did have to make the decision to go virtual again, which means families can walk anywhere they happen to be, and their relatives can also walk. So we're looking forward to getting people from all across the world walking with us. Halton Down Syndrome also has summer programming available. I know it's going out through the SEAC committee as well for sports programmings and some community efforts as well. So we're looking forward to celebrating the month of June with our families again, and thank all of our families for joining us.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now it's time for the trustees report.
Okay, through you, Chair. So June 2022, this is the HDSB month that we recognize Italian Heritage Month. We also recognize Portuguese History and Heritage Month, National Indigenous History Month, and Pride Month. And I can tell you that today I was at Town Hall in Milton raising the Pride flag. So happy Pride Month to everyone. The trustees will be considering approving the budget this month. And just so you know, HDSB is the second lowest funded in the province on a per pupil basis. Not good stats. Other things we're doing, we've got, and I'll let Chair Shuttleworth talk about the hiring of new staff. We've got graduations coming up. A couple have already started, which is really exciting, and one of the best parts, to be quite honest, of being a trustee is actually being in person at the students' graduations, be it grade 8 or high school. So that's exciting stuff for us. Our final meeting will be June the 15th, but that's always subject to change if something comes up. And maybe we won't be meeting this summer, but again, that's subject to change as well. And I'm going to pass the torch over to Margot.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, so again, building off from what Heather said, with those signature months or the history and heritage months for this past year, it was also really nice. I don't know if any of you tuned in. It had nothing better to do last Wednesday evening. but Tanya Rocha is one of our trustees, and she is of Portuguese descent, and she actually did the Portuguese Heritage Month introduction and spoken Portuguese. So it was really nice to have that personal flavor in that recognition of the month. And I'm really hoping that we have those kind of inputs as we continue to move forward. As Heather hinted at, we have been busy hiring new staff to replace all the wonderful people that we are losing to retirement this year. So for all of you who are aware, so Associate Director Bogue is retiring. Superintendent Blackwell is retiring. Superintendent Truffin is retiring. And then Superintendent Salmini is moving to be our new associate director. So we've filled our associate director with Tina, but then we needed to hire 3 new superintendents to fill the positions that are so sadly lost from some great staff that we are losing. So we're sad to lose them, but we're looking forward to the new staff that are coming to take their place. And they include 2 principals from within Halton. So you know one of them because he has been at the SEAC table, and my mind escapes me because I'm thinking that
I'm going to help you, Margot. Jonathan Schoss.
Schoss, who used to work at Hopes and has come to the board. He's come to SEAC, has he not, Colette?
Not in the time I've been here, but that's of a short period of time. So he may have come for Project Search, or he may have come related to Safe Schools.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he has. And then the other internal hire is Nick Frankovich, who is coming to us from, if I said Glen Abbey, would I be right?
Falgarwood.
Falgarwood. I knew it was Oakville. So we're really excited to have the new members of the team coming to join us. But again, as I said, we're really sad to lose some great members of staff who are leaving. I've been popping in and out because I'm popping over to the final Student Senate meeting of the year as well. They just finished off their Halton Youth Learning Symposium a couple weeks ago, which they had a virtual presentation, which was really great. It's always nice to see, the passion and energy that comes from our students within the board. And then, of course, as always, I will always plug our Inspire Awards. So for those of you who I'm assuming all know about this, our Inspire Awards are awards given to members within the HDSB community who do something to promote and inspire and innovate classrooms and children within our board. It's a really great recognition at the board meetings. Because it's the end of the year, we usually only have Inspire Awards at the first meeting of every month, but because there are so many coming up, we actually have a second Inspire Award night this coming board meeting too. So again, if you have anyone who you know is doing a great job out there, go on to the HDSB website and fill out a form to show everybody else how inspiring they are. And then, last of the news information is, I think we spoke to you last time we were together, or maybe 2 times ago, about our Reimagine Forward initiative that was put forward by the trustees. And it went out onto the web, and people were able to give those big ideas and great moments as to how we can learn from what we've gone through with COVID to move forward in a positive and invigorating way in looking at education. We had great input from the Halton community and beyond. The survey closed at the end of May, and we've now written a letter to the Minister of Education to have a look at that information to see if he can use that to invigorate education across the province. And last but not least, as Heather said, next week is our last board meeting, and we will be taking the special education plan to the board with the feedback we received tonight, as well as the concerns, Yaleen, that you raised in the minority report, so that we as trustees can vote on that as well. And that, as I can see it, is our report. If anybody has any questions, Heather and I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions for the trustees? Nope, not at this time. Okay, so we've got the last, one of the last sections is committee reports. Parent Involvement Committee. don't think we have a rep there. We've had feedback from Lucille on the Accessibility Coordinating Committee, the Equity and Inclusive Education Advisory Steering Committee. Nope. Okay. And the mental health and wellbeing
Allison,
strategy.
that's me.
Oh, sorry, Diane. Yep. Okay.
I was slow in pushing the button.
Okay.
And I have nothing to report because we haven't met. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mental health and wellbeing strategy steering and advisory committee.
Nothing to report at this moment.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we're on item 5.0. Is there anything that anybody would like to have added to the agenda for next year? We've talked a little bit about having maybe the accessibility group coming from, suggested by Lucille. Anything else? I've suggested we have the mental health and well-being group back and see their work. So is there anything else anybody would like to see? Lucille?
I really have enjoyed the association presentations. So perhaps we can reach out to those associations that didn't present this time round.
That would be great. Yeah. It's always great to know what resources are available in our community. So that's wonderful. But if anybody has any thoughts, they can reach out to me over the summer or Colette and Marta, and we can try and make sure we get something on the agenda for areas that we want to address. That being said, it is 8:54 on our final meeting of the year. And so I would like to, on behalf of the whole of SEAC, thank everybody who's spent their time as volunteers sitting here advocating for the needs of the community. And I'd like to say I truly appreciate the fact that everybody is advocating for all students, not just their associations. Obviously, all students, particularly with exceptionalities, but really all students within the board. And that makes this for a much more constructive and inclusive environment that I hope that other people feel welcome to join. And we will see that as we put out promotion for new members. I hope that everybody has a wonderful summer, that you get to spend time with your family, get to relax, and take a little bit of time for yourselves. We will be back here in September to do it all over again, and to continue to make change and improvement for the students in our school board. So thank you to all the staff and all our support teams, our trustees, our association members, members at large. Thank you, and I wish you